Memento, The Prestige, Tenet, now Oppenheimer, Batman trilogy, Dunkirk, now Oppenheimer, Insomnia, Inception, Interstellar, now Oppenheimer, I become Death Destroyer of Worlds, I'm Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer, bombs going off all over the world, bombs because of Oppenheimer, bombs. It's Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer, written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who did all the movies I just mentioned, that terrible rendition of Gangnam Style. That song is just over 10 years old. Open, where has the time gone? So, Oppenheimer, or Open, who really cares? Pronounce it however you want. You say tomato, I say okay. Why was this 3 goddamn hours? But don't worry. Christopher Nolan has absolutely been able to nail having long movies and, not have them get to the point where they just get so long in the goddamn tooth you're wondering what the hell's going on. But who's in this movie? Cillian Murphy, who's in Red Eye. That's a role that sticks out in my mind because he was really good, and that movie had no right really to be as entertaining as it was. He's been in so much other great stuff, though. I mean, seriously, take a look at his IMDb page. He's a really terrific actor. And he dove deep into this role of Oppenheimer. Okay, I'm done. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man who became Death Destroyer of Worlds, whose invention basically led to, well, Japan being bombed and the nuclear program. Nuclear, it's pronounced nuclear. And then you have Emily Blunt, who plays Kitty Oppenheimer, who is his wife. Not his sister, though in some circles, marriage and family go hand in hand, and incest and family trees are just a straight line, which has nothing to do with Oppenheimer. There are other people in this. Matt Damon, thanks Team America World Police, I'll never unhear that. Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss, or Strauss, however you really want to pronounce it. Florence Pugh is in this. I love me some Florence Pugh. Oh boy, there were a few particular scenes I really liked. She wasn't in this movie that much, but man, when she was, boy howdy. Kenneth Branagh, Josh Hartnett, Jack Quaid, Rami Malek. Oh boy, yeah, Rami Malek isn't bad. I don't know. I've never really cared much for him. I don't think he's awful, though. Amsterdam, I mean, that really wasn't going to live or die, or ride or die on his performance. That movie was doomed from the start. And also Casey Affleck. Read up on Casey Affleck. Read up Casey Affleck and stuff that he may have done, yet he still keeps getting work. So, anyway, it's the story of Oppenheimer, the man that created such, a vile device that was used to destroy the possible world. Destroy it. Boom. I'm trying to find some entertainment in this 3-hour goddamn movie. This got a world of hype around it. A world of hype. I remember seeing commercials for this months and months ago. I'm like, oh boy, Christopher Nolan, who is a very good director when he wants to be. Then there are other times where Christopher Nolan, I think, maybe gets just a little too invested in thinking that he's doing some good stuff with some source material and some fanciful material. But when he's good, he's really goddamn good. $100 million budget plus marketing. It had a lot of goddamn marketing. So a fun fact about this movie before I dive into really the story. You guys may have noticed in the trailer and maybe even in some leaked footage, color scenes, black and white scenes. The color scenes are subjective. The black and white are objective, meaning this is how it actually happened. Look, I'm not saying that there aren't, historical accuracies here, but it just got to the point where this movie was really long, and it was incredibly well acted, incredibly well shot. Very good camera work. Nolan is a technical marvel at framing shit, and the acting, again, really good. Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, some very terrific acting here. Matt Damon being a little more dialed back, but just still being so goddamn good. He's been great for a number of years. I'd still argue that The Talented Mr. Ripley is one of his most underappreciated roles. And Florence Pugh, boy howdy, God, she looked great. Robert Downey Jr., who has just had such a career resurgence in the last 15 years. I guess that's not really much of a resurgence, but then again, given how everybody thought he was a really good actor and everybody thought that he would have been dead long before Iron Man came out, the way he turned his life around, so great for him. And this had so much press, so much publicity behind it, And now with the actors and writers strike going on and everything, the cast had to leave the UK premiere early to join the front lines, basically, because studios don't want to pay people properly. So that's another story for another day. This got a ton of hype, was released the same day as Barbie. And depending on when you watch this, you will be seeing that I had a review of that, because I decided to participate in Barbenheimer. Okay, so let's get into the whole thing. We jump back and forth. First, we have Oppenheimer being interrogated basically by a committee that is questioning, are you now or have you ever been a communist? Because this is taking place during the time when communism, even after World War II ended, where communism is at an all-time goddamn high. It will only get worse and worse and worse. Well, the Russians have the bomb. How would they get the bomb? How would they possibly get this stuff? Oh, Oppenheimer must have done it because he's the only person that had anything to do, with the position of power at Los Alamos, which is the test site, town, that kind of stuff that they built their own town and did their own testing of, could we make a hydrogen bomb? Could we make an atomic bomb? What could we possibly make? We could make all these destructive devices. We could do all this, thermal dynamics and all this stuff and all the sciencey talk with a lot of great acting and then it would go to the black and white stuff of Robert Downey Jr.'s character Lewis being in front of a committee where he may have done he may have done something to smear the name of Oppenheimer. Maybe people are out to get him. Maybe Oppenheimer was too, egotistical, trusted the wrong people, whatever it is. All this stuff gets peeled back and everything, and eventually, and am I far enough into the review to say, fuck Christopher Nolan for making this goddamn thing? 3 goddamn pissing hours of this movie being so far up its own goddamn ass that even the Human Centipede trilogy said, lad, this is a bit much. What the hell are you doing? Again, amazing technical, aspects to this. It looked great. The acting was very, very good. And it was so goddamn boring and bland on the surface and even underneath that, yes, the story of Oppenheimer, it's fascinating. This did not need to be 3 goddamn hours. I'm all for movies being long. I like Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid at least moved. This movie, at times where I'm like, okay, we could have cut this. We could have cut this stuff. There are certain things that could have been cut. This could have been cut by 40 minutes. I'm sorry. There were some great scenes in this. Well-acted scenes and the tension of, will this test go well or will boom? Will we explode the atmosphere? If they had exploded the atmosphere, I wouldn't be here doing this stuff, and none of y'all would be here. We'd all be in a nuclear wasteland. Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear. I like the cut of your jib. What's a jib? Haha, promote that man. Yeah. From the very beginning of this, you know that you're in for a lot of great acting. And that's the one thing, once again, that I want to say. There are some excellent pieces of dialogue. But also, this movie is badly edited. I mean badly. It's just boom, boom, boom. We're going bing, we're going over here. Bing, we're going over here. Bing, we're going over here. And yeah, it's based on the novel, about Oppenheimer and everything. And there are certain pieces taken out. And then Christopher Nolan just decides, hey, we're just going to have a whole bunch of fun with this story. And no, it's not a happy story because is Oppenheimer trying to keep his reputation going, even as egotistical as he is. But then we go flat out alternate history with certain aspects that I may talk about in the spoiler section. I'm going to let people form their own goddamn opinion watching this. I'm going to be on a goddamn island. I know for a fact that people are not going to appreciate the fact that I am knocking this movie and calling it up its own goddamn ass, but it is. It is. Technically, acting-wise and everything, sure, great. But so boring, so bland and just lacking in anything. There are no stakes. There are no stakes. Yes, there are moments where, okay, this might happen to this character, or this might happen to this character. No, it just ends up being a whole lot of nothing. We don't end up finding out any new information. I mean, sure, some of it's a little bit entertaining, but then it just keeps going and going and going. Setting up Los Alamos was kind of cool. Matt Damon not exactly trusting, Matt Damon's character not trusting Oppenheimer at first, and Josh Hartnett was quite good in this as well. But I'm sorry. From as far as a movie, as far as something that I am glad I watched in theaters, no, I could have actually been good never seeing this goddamn movie. This is right up there with Interstellar as being so far up its own goddamn ass. It's amazing. It is goddamn amazing. This movie is very pretentious. It's very it again for all the positives that I mentioned. This movie just ends up being so boring and so bland and Emily Blunt, as great of an actress as she is, there are some scenes where I'm like, okay, I see why she's acting this way, and I see why Cillian Murphy's acting this way, and Florence Pugh, even as great as she is in certain scenes, she's totally goddamn wasted. I mean, granted, her character isn't necessarily important to the continuation of the story, but it bops back and forth so many goddamn times. I think some time stamps or some year stamps might have helped. 1942, 1954, 1949, something or other. Because it does get to where, unless you have read the book, front, back, side to side and everything, and you have done everything, you could get a little bit lost with this. As much of a linear story as this tries to be, it also bops around a whole bunch. And just ends up being a movie that is not good. It's overall not good because it's boring. As much positivity as there is for how it was made and how it was acted, over here, a bunch of goddamn shit that just made me think, I can't believe that this movie, I can't believe this movie is 3 goddamn hours and accomplished nothing. It'll win a bunch of awards. It will. And I will end up probably getting a ton of hate in the not that I really give a good goddamn Christ, because this ended up reminding me that Christopher Nolan, at his best, can make stuff like the Batman trilogy. Or he can make Insomnia that was pretty good. Upon reflection, Inception was kind of pretentious, wasn't it? As smart as the movie was, it was about half as smart as it really ended up being, and the same goes for Interstellar, with fanciful stuff and everything. And yeah, maybe I will get all upset at that and, go wage war against a movie. No, I won't do that. Yes, it's about war, and the horrors of war, and the fears, and all stuff, and are we doing the right thing to win the war, ending human lives, all that stuff, because we know how the creation of this particular weapon ended. And how it's still a continued fear among so many countries that have this particular technology a number of decades later. That doesn't mean that this movie is frightening or anything good, anything except to admire the acting and admire the camera work and then just think, God, is this over? God, is this over? It's like, really? We need all these scenes? We couldn't have cut, 30, 40 minutes out of it? Evidently not. Anyway, I'm going to get into spoilers here. Spoilers will not take very long. They really won't take long because there isn't a whole lot to goddamn spoil. Anyway, it's in theaters. Check it out if you want. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Okay, so Oppenheimer has an on-again, off-again thing with Florence Pugh, who looks amazing. Looks amazing. Goddamn amazing. He ends up meeting Emily Blunt, Kitty Oppenheimer, who basically decides, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to marry you. Oh, you're going to continue to cheat on me? Even the producer decided, I don't want to chime in on this goddamn thing anymore. I don't want to even chime in on this nuclear wasteland. Basically, he meets Emily Blunt, and it also turns out that he humiliated Robert Downey Jr.'s character at a committee meeting thing, something or other, and Strauss never forgot. So he decided to do a smear campaign after Los Alamos got built and the bomb went up and boom, 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 boom. And now there's all this talk, oh no, how could the Russians have gotten a hold of this? Well, for all the security talk, Oppenheimer trusted the wrong people because there was this one guy that turns out actually was a communist spy. No! Even though it was obvious to anybody. Anybody with even one working brain cell. And I mean in the movie, I don't mean just the viewers. But the real kicker is, it jumps back and forth so many goddamn times that you just get to where you just don't care. I don't care what these characters are doing, why these characters are doing this. And sure, there's historical accuracies with this. There's historical inaccuracies. Albert Einstein, I think, has as much goddamn camera time as Florence Pugh. Nevertheless, given Albert Einstein's intelligence, that makes sense. But yeah, then it turns out that Oppenheimer basically has to slunk away even though he didn't do anything wrong, the communist stuff and all that. His brother report, his brother being, a former member of the Communist Party, his wife being a former member of the Communist Party, all that stuff. Come. And then from there, Strauss gets basically just banished. You are banned. You have lost absolute power because you decided to be a dick and be vindictive and everything. And even a young John F. Kennedy, got involved and was one of the people that said, "No, Strauss, you cannot do this." Also, President Truman, former President Truman, which would be weird if he was actually still alive. He's there. And also then we see stuff about, the program being used to launch rockets into space and all that, and Cillian Murphy talking to Albert Einstein, all that, and yeah, it's all historically whatever and everything, and I hate it. I'm sorry. This wasn't good. This wasn't good at all. I'm sorry. I don't care how good the acting. I don't care how good the camera work is. I'm giving it an F. I open myself up to goddamn criticism. The acting, the camera work, all that gets like in a B+, as terrific as it is. But I'm sorry, everything else as far as the boring factor, as far as being stretched out to its goddamn limit, not being interesting, having a few interesting parts sprinkled in, a few interesting parts here and there, does not justify a 3-hour runtime of something that really isn't actually all that fucking interesting. So yeah, overall gets an F, and I look forward to the insane amount of hate that I will get in the comments because I just have an opinion. Agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.